The correctional officers gathered at the fence line of the recreation yard fell silent when Marcus Bell lowered himself into a freestanding handstand against the concrete wall. It was July of 2001, and the medium security facility in central Pennsylvania housed roughly 1,200 inmates, most of whom spent their yard time at the iron pile, lifting weights that had been donated by a local gym. The air smelled of hot asphalt, cigarette smoke, and the metallic tang of rusted barbells. "That's your workout?" The question came from Officer Davis, a former college linebacker who stood 6'3" and carried a frame that suggested he still hit the weights himself. Bell's approach to fitness traced back to a path that began long before his incarceration in 1998. He had served 6 years in the United States Marine Corps, enlisting at 18 and spending most of that time assigned to force reconnaissance units, where physical capability meant survival in operations that could not be discussed outside classified briefings. The Marines had introduced him to the fundamentals of bodyweight conditioning. Pull-ups, dips, push-ups, and running formed the core of their physical readiness testing, and Bell had excelled at all of them. But his real education came after his discharge in 1995. He had enrolled at Temple University in Philadelphia using his GI Bill benefits, pursuing a degree in kinesiology with the intention of becoming a physical therapist. He had completed 2 years of coursework before the aggravated assault conviction that landed him at SCI Greendale with a sentence of 4 to 8 years. Those 2 years had given him something most inmates lacked. He understood anatomy at a level that went beyond muscle magazines and gym folklore. He had studied biomechanics, learning how lever arms and joint angles affected force production. He had examined research on progressive overload, muscle fiber recruitment, and the neurological adaptations that separated trained athletes from untrained individuals. The decision to focus exclusively on bodyweight training was not born from necessity, it was strategic. Bell had observed the iron pile culture during his first weeks at Greendale and recognized its limitations. The dominant paradigm was simple: lift heavy, get big, command respect. The hierarchy was equally straightforward. Men who benched 315 pounds sat at the top. Those who struggled with 185 pounds occupied the bottom. Size translated directly to social capital in an environment where physical intimidation prevented conflicts that could turn deadly. But Bell had learned something during his Marine service and university studies that most inmates never considered. Absolute strength mattered less than strength-to-weight ratio in almost every practical application. A man who weighed 220 pounds and benched 350 pounds was moving 1.6 times his body weight. A man who weighed 168 pounds and could perform a full planche was supporting his entire body weight on his hands with his body held parallel to the ground, creating leverage that multiplied the effective load to nearly 3 times body weight. The physics didn't lie. He'd started his training regimen in the spring of 1999, roughly 6 months into his sentence. The prison library contained several books on gymnastics and calisthenics, likely donated by some well-meaning organization that had no idea how useful the information would prove. Bell read them methodically, cross-referencing the exercises with his kinesiology knowledge. He developed a progression system based on the principles he'd learned at Temple. For upper body pushing strength, he started with standard push-ups, progressing to decline push-ups with feet elevated on his bunk frame. From there, he moved to pike push-ups with hips elevated, then to wall-supported handstand push-ups, and eventually to freestanding handstand push-ups that required balance and control most men couldn't imagine developing. Each progression increased the percentage of body weight being moved and the stability demands placed on supporting muscles. Handstand work forced a new level of control. For upper body pulling strength, he began with standard pull-ups, achieving sets of 20 repetitions within weeks. He progressed to archer pull-ups, shifting his weight to one side while keeping the opposite arm relatively straight. Then came one-arm negatives, pulling up with both arms and lowering slowly on one. By the summer of 2001, He could hold a one-arm dead hang for 45 seconds and was working toward his first complete one-arm pull-up. One-arm skill became a clear focus. His leg training followed similar progressions. Pistol squats, performed on one leg with the opposite leg extended forward, became his baseline. From there, he worked towards shrimp squats, where the non-working leg bent behind the body. He could hold a single leg squat at the bottom position for 30 seconds, a feat that required both strength and balance that defied what most observers thought possible without external weight. Pistol work proved surprisingly effective. The core training was perhaps most demanding. L-sits, holding the body suspended between parallel bars or on the ground with legs extended straight forward, required extraordinary abdominal strength and hip flexor endurance. He'd progressed from bent knee L-sits to full L-sits held for 90 seconds. Advanced variations included V-sits and mana positions that only elite gymnasts typically attempted. Core strength underpinned every skill. He kept detailed logs in a notebook he purchased from commissary, recording every workout with the precision of a scientific experiment. Sets, repetitions, hold times, rest intervals, and subjective difficulty ratings filled the pages. He measured his progress in seconds and degrees of difficulty rather than pounds and plates. The prison yard ecosystem operated on different metrics. The weight pile in the northeast corner was controlled by a loose coalition of powerlifters and bodybuilders who'd established an informal training schedule that maximized equipment access for those who'd earned their place through demonstrated strength. Tommy Marchetti, serving 12 years for armed robbery, functioned as the unofficial captain of the iron pile. At 245 pounds with arms that measured 19 inches around, Marchetti benched 405 pounds and squatted close to 500. His physical presence commanded immediate respect from inmates and guards alike. 3 other lifters formed Marchetti's inner circle. Each man weighed over 220 pounds. Each could bench press at least 315 pounds. They occupied the benches during prime yard hours, their training sessions drawing crowds of younger inmates who hoped to learn the secrets of building mass and strength behind bars. The conventional wisdom at Erskine Greendale was brutally straightforward. Size equaled respect. Respect equaled safety. A man who looked dangerous attracted less trouble than a man who looked vulnerable. The equation was simple enough that even the newest arrivals understood it within their first week on the yard. This was not abstract philosophy. It was survival mathematics, backed by decades of institutional experience. Bell's rejection of this paradigm registered as either foolishness or arrogance to most observers. At 168 pounds, he looked like what the iron pile regulars called a skinny. His defined muscles and low body fat percentage suggested athleticism, but in an environment where bulk intimidated potential aggressors, his physique seemed inadequate for the realities of prison life. The testing began in small ways during the spring of 2000, verbal challenges during yard time, questions about whether he was afraid to lift real weight, suggestions that maybe he should stick to the basketball court where skinny guys belonged. Bell responded to these provocations with the same calm demeanor he had cultivated during force recon operations. He acknowledged the comments, explained his training philosophy when asked, and continued his progressions without visible concern. The tension escalated in October of 2000 when a new arrival named Rodriguez tried to claim Bell's usual training spot in the southwest corner. Rodriguez weighed 210 pounds and had spent the previous 5 years at a maximum security facility where violence was more common than at Greendale. He had observed Bell's workout routine for 3 days before deciding the corner space would serve better for the heavy bag work he preferred. The confrontation was quiet but definitive. Bell explained that he had been using the space for 18 months and suggested Rodriguez find an alternative location. Rodriguez responded by stepping closer, using his size advantage to crowd Bell's personal space. The implied threat was clear: move or we will have a problem that neither of us wants. Bell did not move. He maintained eye contact and repeated his position calmly. The corner was his training space. Rodriguez was welcome to work out anywhere else in the yard. The standoff lasted perhaps 30 seconds before Officer Davis intervened, directing Rodriguez to another area and ending the immediate confrontation. But the incident established something important. Bell would not be intimidated by size alone. Marchetti took notice. The iron pile captain had survived 12 years of incarceration by reading people accurately and understanding the subtle power dynamics that governed yard politics. Bell's response to Rodriguez suggested either dangerous confidence or complete ignorance of prison realities. Marchetti decided to find out which. The conversation happened in early November, during one of the rare moments when Marchetti approached someone outside his usual circle. He asked Bell directly why he avoided the iron pile. Bell explained his training philosophy in terms that Marchetti found difficult to dismiss: strength-to-weight ratio, biomechanical efficiency, progressive overload through leverage manipulation rather than added mass, injury prevention through controlled movement patterns. Marchetti listened with more attention than most men gave to Bell's explanations. He had been lifting weights for 15 years and understood that different approaches could produce different results. But he remained skeptical that bodyweight training alone could develop the kind of strength that mattered in this environment. The question that ended their conversation was straightforward. Can you back it up, or is this all theory? The challenge took shape over the following weeks. Greendale held an informal strength competition every spring, organized by the inmates with tacit approval from the administration. The event included traditional tests, maximum repetitions of pull-ups and dips, and a 1-rep maximum bench press for those who participated in the iron pile training. The 2001 competition was scheduled for the first Saturday of June. Marchetti issued his challenge in March. He would participate in his usual events, bench press and weighted dips. Bell could demonstrate whatever bodyweight movements he thought proved his point. The yard could judge which approach produced superior results. It was framed as friendly competition, but everyone understood the stakes. If Bell failed to demonstrate capabilities that justified his unconventional approach, his credibility would evaporate. If he succeeded, it would challenge assumptions that had governed yard culture for decades. Bell accepted immediately. The 4 months between March and June gave him time to refine the demonstrations he had been planning since his arrival at Greendale. He selected 3 movements that would prove his point definitively: a full planche hold, supporting his entire body weight horizontally on his hands; a 1-arm pull-up, demonstrating strength-to-weight ratio that few men could match; and a freestanding handstand push-up, combining balance, strength, and body control in a way that made conventional pressing strength look crude by comparison. His training intensified through April and May. He added frequency to his key movements, practicing planche progressions twice daily. He worked 1-arm pull-up negatives until he could lower himself with perfect control over a 10-second count. He held handstands against the wall for 5-minute intervals, building the shoulder endurance and balance needed for the freestanding variation. His work had clearly intensified. Word spread through the facility. The skinny guy from the southwest corner was going to compete against Marchetti's crew in the June competition. The betting started in early May. Most money favored the conventional approach. A few inmates who had watched Bell's training sessions placed smaller bets on the underdog, drawn by odds that reached 10-1 in some cases. The first Saturday of June arrived with temperatures pushing 90 degrees. Nearly 400 inmates crowded into the recreation yard for the annual competition. The conventional events went first, drawing cheers as the iron pile regulars posted impressive numbers. Marchetti benched 405 pounds, his best effort drawing roars of approval from the assembled crowd. His training partner completed 50 weighted dips with a 45-pound plate chained to his waist. Standard pull-ups reached counts above 30 for several competitors. The guards watched from their usual positions along the fence line. Officer Davis stood near the front, his skepticism about Bell's approach unchanged since that July afternoon 2 years earlier. Bell approached the pull-up bar when his turn came. No warm-up routine, no dramatic preparation. He simply gripped the bar with his right hand, his left arm hanging loose at his side, and pulled himself upward in a smooth, controlled motion. His chin cleared the bar. He lowered with the same control, taking 5 seconds to descend to a dead hang. The crowd went silent. Several inmates who had bet against him stopped mid-conversation. Marchetti, standing near the fence line with his arms crossed, uncrossed them and stepped closer. A one-arm pull-up was not just difficult, it was a feat most men considered impossible regardless of training approach. Bell performed a second repetition, then a third, each one executed with form that made the movement look effortless. Though anyone with knowledge of biomechanics understood the forces involved. At 168 pounds of body weight, he was lifting his entire with one arm while maintaining body tension that prevented swing or kipping. The strength-to-weight ratio required exceeded anything the conventional lifters could demonstrate. The planche came next. Bell positioned himself on the parallel bars used for dips. He leaned forward, shifting his weight onto his hands while lifting his feet from the ground. His body rose until it was perfectly horizontal, parallel to the ground, supported entirely by his locked arms. The position created a moment arm that multiplied the effective load. His hands bore not just 168 pounds, but the rotational force created by his body's center of mass, positioned far from his base of support. He held the position for 12 seconds. His body remained rigid, hollow body tension preventing any sag in his hips or shoulders. The scapular protraction kept his shoulders stable. The posterior pelvic tilt engaged his core musculature. Every muscle from his fingertips to his toes worked in coordinated tension to maintain the hold. When he lowered his feet back to the ground, the silence persisted for another moment before scattered applause began. The applause was not universal. Many in the crowd remained skeptical, processing what they had witnessed against everything they understood about strength training. Marchetti made the challenge that settled the debate. He said, "Let's see one of you boys try that." He gestured toward the parallel bars. His tone was not mocking. It was genuine curiosity about whether size and conventional strength could replicate what Bell had demonstrated. 3 of the iron pile regulars attempted the planche. The first was a lifter weighing 230 pounds who had completed 40 weighted dips earlier, and he could not get his feet off the ground. The leverage required to support his mass horizontally exceeded his ability to generate force through his shoulders and core. The second managed to lift his feet for perhaps 2 seconds before his shoulders buckled and he had to step down. The third, recognizing the difficulty after watching the first 2 failures, declined to attempt it. The one-arm pull-up proved equally impossible for the conventional lifters. The same man who had benched 405 pounds could not complete a single one-arm pull-up repetition. The strength required to 245 pounds of body weight vertically with one arm exceeded what his training had developed. His muscles were built for bilateral pressing movements with external loads, not unilateral pulling with body weight as resistance. Officer Davis approached Bell after the demonstrations concluded. The skepticism from 2 years earlier was gone, replaced by something that looked like professional respect. Davis said quietly, "That was impressive. I have been in corrections for 14 years. I have never seen anything like that planche hold." The transformation in yard culture did not happen overnight. It unfolded gradually over the following months as other inmates approached Bell with questions about his training methods. He began teaching progressions in the southwest corner during evening yard time. Groups of 5 to 10 men would gather to learn proper form for pistol squats, the mechanics of L-sits, and the progression pathways toward advanced movements. Marchetti was among the first to adopt elements of Bell's approach. He did not adopt it as a replacement for his iron pile training, but as a complement. He started working on archer pull-ups and declined push-up progressions. Within 6 months, he could hold an L-sit for 30 seconds, a feat that required the core strength his heavy squats and deadlifts had not developed. The injury rate in the yard dropped measurably in 2002. The prison medical staff noted the reduction in shoulder strains, lower back problems, and joint issues that had been common among the iron pile regulars. bodyweight progressions allowed for better movement control and reduced the impact loading that came with moving heavy barbells through space. Bell was released in November of 2003 after serving 5 years of his sentence. He had earned early parole through good behavior and completion of educational programs. A recommendation letter from Officer Davis mentioned his positive influence on yard culture and his willingness to help other inmates develop healthier approaches to fitness. After his release, Bell completed his kinesiology degree at Temple and earned certification as a strength and conditioning specialist. He worked with former military personnel, teaching bodyweight progressions that could be performed without gym access. By 2008, he had published a training manual that became popular in both civilian and correctional fitness communities. The methods he developed at SCY Greendale influenced training approaches in prisons across Pennsylvania and eventually throughout the federal system. The recognition that strength-to-weight ratio mattered more than absolute size challenged decades of institutional culture built around intimidation and bulk. In 2024, Bell runs a nonprofit organization that teaches progressive calisthenics to at-risk youth and formerly incarcerated individuals. The organization's name, Leverage Athletics, reflects the principle he had proven in that prison yard more than 20 years earlier. Knowledge of biomechanics and disciplined progression could overcome advantages that seemed insurmountable through conventional approaches. The correctional officers at SCY Greendale still tell the story of the inmate who revolutionized yard training with nothing but body weight and an understanding of physics. Officer Davis, now retired, keeps a photo from the 2001 competition in his home office. It shows Bell holding a perfect planche while 400 inmates watch in stunned silence.